A very good morning and welcome to our special broadcast of the budget speech of 2025 and 2026. We are coming live to you from the Eastern Cape Legislature in Bisho. My name is Jessica Bobo, and of course I will not be covering this important and huge event alone. I will be joined by my colleague Yamkela Mchio. Yamkela, a very good morning.
Thank you so much. Good morning to you too, Jessica.
Well, Yamkela, you must agree with me when I say it's quite a tough task to put together such an important event like this. And I remember earlier on you had a conversation with a spokesperson of the MEC of Finance, Pumelele Godongwana. Are they ready for today?
Of course, Jessica, as you said, we had a conversation with Pumelele Godongwana, the spokesperson for the MEC. He told us that they are ready for the budget that will be delivered by the MEC at 10. And he said that they have followed every necessary step that is there to ensure that it becomes a success, with all the meetings they had with the standing committees, with the Premier himself and his entire administration. Now, let's take a look at what Pumelele Godongwana had to say about their readiness and as well as what it takes to put together a budget.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. Could you please tell us how ready are you for the budget speech and what were your preparations prior to it?
Thank you very much. As Provincial Treasurer in the Eastern Cape, as led by our MEC for Finance, Mr. Mlungisi, we are ready for today's budget. We've done everything that needed to be done coming to this day. We went through various stages of consultation, including engaging National Treasury, where we were bidding for money for the province. There were medium-term expenditure framework, technical committees that sat with different departments and clusters, where even the province where I was bidding for money from Treasury, including Office of the Premier. We went through that, we considered their requests, and thereafter we consulted other structures, including budget committees and the EXCO as led by Premier Mambuyane, where we had to get endorsement and approval before we are able to come before people of the Eastern Cape to present today's budget. So we are confident that we are ready, and MEC is already around to table today's budget.
Speaking of the people of the Eastern Cape, how significant is the budget to the delivering of services to the people that you are talking about?
The budget speech in the main is designed to enable implementation of priorities of government and program of action of any government. You will recall that in February this year, Premier of the Eastern Cape presented the State of the Province address, where he articulated priorities of government and program of action of 2025-2026 and the medium term. So this budget is therefore going to ensure that we support those priorities and we support that program of action from this financial year, which is 2025-2026, and over the next 3 years, up to 2027-2028 financial year. It is that important to make sure that we are able to provide services to our people through this budget. We are able to ensure that issues that relate to health services, issues that relate to education, issues that relate to economic growth and job creation, it is through this budget that we'll be able to achieve all those things. As we know by now that the overall priorities of government revolve around inclusive economic growth and job creation, tackling poverty, and including ensure that we are able to capacitate to deliver services to our people. So all those issues are the issues that MEC Mlungisi will have to consider going into today's budget speech.
Right. Lastly, according to the Minister of National Treasury, the economy slowed down to 0.6%. Last year, as the province, the budget that you had did not cover expenses of the entire province. Are you hopeful that this year you are going to get enough funding?
Maybe just to first respond to the question of being able to cover the expenses of the province last year, I can confirm that we were able to cover the entire expenses of the province through the mechanisms that we use to supplement the budget that we received from National Treasury, because as you put it, our transfers from National Treasury where they fell short for about 2 billion or so in the last financial year. And you will know that we received national transfers through equitable share and also the conditional grants. And now when it came to expenses that we had to pay as a province, we had that budget deficit. We therefore had to use our provincial own revenue and also take from our reserves to make sure that we cushion that deficit. We don't know how the budget is going to be presented this year. We await MEC to do that. We don't know how much money we've received from National Treasury. We are waiting to hear that from the MEC. But where there is a shortfall, I'm sure we will have to implement same mechanisms that we have done in the previous years. But we are hopeful that what we're able to receive will be able to cover everything that we've prepared for the province. We know very well by now that the economy of the country and that of the province is not growing at the desired pace to support all priorities of government. So we will see if this year it comes any closer to what we have prepared for ourselves. But despite everything, we will be able to cover all expenses that are within priorities and program action of the provincial government.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you a lot.
Thank you so much, sir, for
That was
joining
the
us.
spokesperson for the MEC of Finance, Mr. Phumelelo Kotungwane. As we've heard, Jessica saying that last year they had a shortfall, but as the department, they were able to cover that with the amount of money they took from their own reserves, saying that should they find themselves in a similar situation, then they will have to go back and use the same mechanisms to ensure that services are being delivered to the people of the Eastern Cape.
Well, Yamkela, speaking of reserves, you do remember that last year that the MEC of Finance actually tabled the budget speech of 2024 and 2025. And of course, he allocated an amount of 92 billion rand to the Eastern Cape. Yet we knew that the Eastern Cape needed a total payments of about 95 billion rand. And of course, Yamkela, economists do advise that it is not a good idea, and it's of course very risky for the departments to dip into their reserves because they are meant for the emergencies that might arise in the Eastern Cape. But what I can tell you for sure right now is that the officials are crossing their fingers and actually hoping that the MEC of Finance will at least allocate a budget that will sustain and cover the expenses of the Eastern Cape. What do you think?
Of course, Jessica, as you said, economists always advise against the reliance on the reserves by the government, saying that that money is there to act as a cushion should there be emergencies, for example, natural disasters. So if now you use that money more often, it means that it runs a risk of depletion. If that happens, it means that the government now won't be able to take money from the reserves and fix or do mop-ups of natural disasters as quickly as they would like to do so, now leaving people of the Eastern Cape being unable to access services.
Well, Yamgela, speaking of that, a very good example of that is in Kariga in the Nelson Mandela Bay. And just after the floods, a bridge collapsed. And this bridge has caused a number of residents to struggle to go out and in of the Kariga, as now there's only one way, because the other bridge that collapsed was connecting KwaNobuhle to Kariga in a town center. Right now they're struggling and they're in frustration each and every morning. And of course, this is because that the Nelson Mandela Bay could not get the funding from the provincial level due to them dipping into their reserves, which are meant for emergencies.
All right. On the issue of road infrastructure, Jessica, that we've talked about, we've heard the Minister for Finance nationally allocating 100 billion over the medium term, saying that that will be used to ensure that the national road network is in good condition. So we are here waiting to see how much money will the province of the Eastern Cape allocate for road infrastructure to ensure that the provincial road network and the regional road network is up to a good condition, and that the people of the Eastern Cape won't have to struggle going to those necessary service centers that they need to get to.
Well, and of course, as you can see, that the people are still coming in, waiting for the MEC of Finance to actually stand on the podium. But at this moment, Yamkela, one of the hard-hitting issues, and of course, that's the Department of Education. You know, that department kind of needs also a lot of billions and quite a settled amount of allocation from the budget speech, knowing very well but the education department is struggling. Now we can take this to the security, the schools that need more infrastructure.
Of course, the Department of Education needs more money to ensure that every resource is there. But what we can see right now behind us is that the MECs are coming into the chambers, preparing to sit and listen to what the MEC of Finance will be talking about. As we were saying, we're talking about the Department of Education. We know that department has issues with the infrastructure. They have issues with pit toilets that the court has ordered that they must be eradicated. We also have issues with the shortage of teachers as well. So that on its own is a testament to how much money the department needs. We understand we also have the issue of scholar transport. That doesn't seem to be going away because we've had those issues for quite a long time. So we do understand, yes, of course, that it is an issue between two departments, that is the Department of Transport and the Department of Education. But the people of the Eastern Cape, students and parents, would like to see that issue being sorted.
All right. Right now, it's almost 10 o'clock and we are ready to go inside where the MEC of Finance will take the podium. And of course, the people inside are standing still, waiting patiently for the budget speech of 2025 and 2026. Let us take you inside the chambers.
Let me take this opportunity to acknowledge the presence of the Premier, the MEC, the honourable members, as well as those honourable members that are joining us through the virtual setting due to the conflicting House programs today. All our guests in the gallery and those that are joining us on Mpumakapa TV, Mhlobo Wenene, the community radio stations and all our social networks such as Facebook and YouTube. Good morning. Goeiemôre, molweni nonke. Are you happy to be here? Let me turn here. Are you happy to be here? Yes, we are. Let me take the opportunity just to remind honourable members that this is a formal sitting of the legislature, and therefore all the standing rules of the legislature applies. Members and guests must keep their cell phones and other devices on silent at all times when you are inside the chamber. Please do note that the proceedings are being streamed on live on YouTube and Facebook of the Eastern Cape Provincial Government. Furthermore, these proceedings are also broadcast live on Mpumakapa TV. So whatever you do, don't do funny things in here. It will all be caught on camera. But today is an exciting day for us. It's one of those days that we've all been waiting for, especially as the speaker. I'm waiting for big announcements today, Honourable MEC. Otherwise, I won't greet again when I walk past there. Premier was saying to you, better greet him today so you can get your allocation. But honourable members, today we are joined by learners and teachers from Masipatisane Senior Secondary School from Gqeberha. Allow me at this stage to ask them to rise. If you can just stand so that the House can, and please give them a rounding applause. You are most welcome. You may be seated. Thank you so much for joining us today. In the same vein, it is exciting that we are having 3 of our guests today that is celebrating their birthdays. They are the guests of Honorable Keleku. Today, she has brought them with. They are all learners from different high schools in the province. And the first one is Ensokushle Kwabi, I hope I pronounce it correctly, whose birthday is on the 26th of March, will still come. Then Zizo Nweba, who had the birthday on the 5th of March from Clarington High School, and Chonkushle Njo, whose birthday will also be on the 26th of March, that is tomorrow, from Kulani Commercial School. Where's Honorable Keleku? Oh, so can we please sing happy birthday to these 3 learners? You can't ask me to sing. Please, Honorable Peters, can you please, or Deputy Chief, or please, can we please? Yes.
Happy birthday to Elena.
You can do better. Again, Honorable MEC. Happy birthday! Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was quite exciting. And thank you so much for taking the time and the opportunity to join us. And I hope that you will be spoiled. Those who had their birthdays and the 2 that will still be having their birthdays tomorrow, I hope that indeed you will be spoiled, and may God continue to bless you in your path. Honorable members, please do take note, as per the decision of the WIPS Committee, that we will have no motions and or member statements in today's sitting. We will, however, allow the Honorable Chief Whip to deal with only 1 motion regarding the time of the House. Honorable Chief Whip, you may proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Greetings to you, the Premier of the Eastern Cape Province, the members of the Executive, as well as the members of this august House, those present here and those in the virtual platform, the guests and everyone in attendance. Madam Speaker, I move without notice in terms of Rule 130 of the Standing Rules that despite the provisions of the Standing Rules of Procedure of the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature, that the House approve the sitting times of the plenary at 10 for the 25th of March 2025. I so move. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chief Whip. You agree, honorable members? Yes. Thank you so much. I will now call upon the Secretary to read the first order of the day.
Introduction of Appropriation Bill 2025, Eastern Cape.
I now call upon the MEC for Finance to introduce the Appropriation Bill 2025. Honorable MEC Mvoko, please can you come to the stand? Your time starts now. I have been so gracious that I've given the MEC 1 hour to do that. Thank you so much, Honorable MEC. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. This is the first budget of the 7th administration, Honorable Speaker, so you will have to give me 2 hours. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Premier, members of the Executive Council, Deputy Speaker, and members of the Provincial Legislature, leaders of the Provincial House and Local House of Traditional and Khoisan Leadership, mayors of our municipalities, and leadership of SALGA. Leaders of political parties, religious leaders, business leaders, leaders of civil society and labor, DG, HODs, CEOs, and other government officials, esteemed guests. Good morning. This is the first budget of the 7th administration. It's a budget that gives appreciation to and acknowledges the developmental vision of the Provincial Development Plan and the Provincial Medium-Term Development Plan. Accordingly, all efforts put into this budget are aimed at supporting priorities of the current government as presented by President Ramaphosa, which are inclusive economy and jobs creation, reducing poverty and tackling high cost of living, and developing a capable, ethical, and developmental state. The Eastern Cape Program of Action has been laid by the Eastern Cape Premier Oscar Mabuyane during his State of the Province address, and we are here to present budget proposals that support provincial policy priorities. I must highlight, Honourable Speaker, that the 2025 medium-term expenditure framework is rooted on a cluster system as adopted by provincial government and is therefore underpinned by the work of the three clusters with greater focus on coordination and integration in planning and service delivery. Madam Speaker, we forge ahead with our plans despite the challenge of an economy that is not growing enough to fully support our priorities. National Treasury is forecasting real GDP growth at 1.9% for 2025. This is higher than the 1.7% growth estimated during the 2024 medium-term budget policy statement. Over the medium term, however, growth is forecast to average 1.8%. The growth trends of the provincial economy broadly follow the national trends. The province has experienced extended low growth periods during the decade prior to the onset of COVID-19 in 2020. Following recovery in 2022, provincial economic growth reverted to a low growth path, growing at by 0.8 and 0.4% in 2023 and 2024 respectively. Despite the low growth of the past 2 years, the provincial economy is expected to marginally recover and grow to 2% in 2025 and projected to average 2.2% for the medium term up to 2027. Madam Speaker, we have, however, observed positive trends in employment performance in some of our economic sectors. The trade sector, a key driver of employment in the province, recorded consistent expansion, an increase from 284,000 jobs in Q4 of 2023 to 295,000 jobs in Q4 of 2024. The transport sector also recorded steady gains, reaching 101,000 jobs, reflecting increased economic activity and logistics demand. The construction industry, a key employer in the province, has remained relatively stable, recording 126,000 jobs in Q4 of 2024, almost matching its Q4 of 2023 performance. This suggests that our ongoing infrastructure projects and government capital investments continue to generate positive results for employment. Manufacturing sector, a sector critical for industrial growth, expanded significantly, increasing from 105,000 jobs in Q4 of 2023 to 139,000 in Q4 of 2024. Now, this resurgence highlights renewed confidence in production, possibly linked to investment incentive and supply chain improvements. The agricultural sector recorded a rise in employment to a high of 124,000 in Q3 of 2024, before dropping to 90,000 in Q4 of 2024, reflecting seasonal employment patterns, as we understand throughout the province that workers or laborers move with the seasons to go to the citrus and Sandys River Valley, etc. Similarly, the private household sector saw a noticeable increase from 94,000 in Q4 of 2023 to 113,000 in Q4 of 2024, highlighting a growing demands for household services. Madam Speaker, the Eastern Cape's labour market has demonstrated resilience and progress over the past year, reflecting steady improvements in employment levels. As Q4 of 2024, the province's unemployment rate has declined to 36.6%, a significant improvement from 41.9% in Q4 of 2023. Now, this positive trends signals a strong labour market bolstered by resilience in some sectors of the provincial economy, although I must admit that these numbers are still very high. Honourable Speaker, we are tabling this year's budget under the theme Inclusive Growth and Development through Government Allocative Efficacy. In short, this means allocating fiscal resources to achieve maximum impact in development to last rand spent. If you'd remember, in the previous years, we would say we'd do with the little that we have. But now we're putting efficacy to ensure that we have a maximum impact in development. As we are preparing for this day, we ask the public to send us tips for budget through our social media pages so we can consider them as part of our priority areas. I wish to thank everyone who participated. Your valuable inputs are appreciated and they've been considered into today's budget speech. Honourable Speaker, the current fiscal environment requires all those that are entrusted with the responsibility of managing public resources to do so with prudence, placing efficiency and effectiveness at the core of their values. For the 2025 MTF budget, there will be no additional resources to departments. Instead, we encourage everyone to identify alternative sources of funding to augment the provincial fiscals. These include reprioritization and trade-offs within and between clusters, top slicing of provincial departments' budget, pledging of conditional grants, donor funding, public-private partnerships, and increased focus on revenue generation. I know some people are saying, why are we here if there's no additional funding? We have to come here even though there's no additional funding, MEC Peters. I heard MEC Peters is complaining about that. The broader fiscal strategy of government remains focused on fiscal sustainability, supporting the economy, and reducing fiscal risks. To support the strategy, our fiscal consolidation measures will include strengthening the rollout of spending reviews, the zero-based budgeting, and baseline analysis on key government programs. We'll continue with the implementation of cost-saving initiatives, including reviewing service delivery models and reprioritization of funds from low to high priority areas. We believe that all these measures, when supported correctly, will help us improve efficiency and effectiveness in the system, and therefore promote inclusiveness, inclusive economic growth and development in our province. A budget tip from Ms. Sikoile Makapa from Mount Fletcher, a recent graduate with a master's degree in economics, perfectly summarized the importance of implementing the zero-based budget exercise. She says, zero-based budgeting is a financial strategy that requires every expense to be justified for each period. This approach ensures that all resources are allocated efficiently, promoting accountability and strategic planning. Close quote. I can't put it any better than she did. We started with this exercise in 2021, and we are seeing positive results. I know that some people were beginning to doubt if this would yield any results. Madam Speaker, for 2025-26 financial year, we have received transfers from the national government totaling 97.6 billion rand, consisting of 82.4 billion rand of equitable share and 15.2 billion rand of conditional grants. It will grow to 100.1 billion rand in 2026-27 and to 104.6 billion rand in 2027-28 financial year. Total payments for the province for 2025-26 amount to 100 billion rand, which is what would be saying this is our budget as a province for the year 2025-26. This then therefore leaves the province with a budget deficit of 2.3 billion. We have had to utilize the 1.8 billion rand of provincial own revenue and 506.8 million rand from own reserves to cushion the deficit. It has become a norm that we use our provincial own revenue and own reserves as means to address budget deficit, as opposed to using it to fund provincial priorities. I must add that we received requests for additional funding from departments amounting to billion rands. To be exact, I think it was about 8.1 billion rand that departments were asking for. But we couldn't fund those requests because of the country's fiscal realities. This picture illustrates 3 important points. 1, that there is no new money. 2, that we must stick to the fiscal consolidation measures we have presented to balance revenue and expenditure. And 3, that we must improve efficiencies so we can expand our fiscal resources to fund our inclusive economic growth projects. The support extends to the maintenance of government residential properties and to make properties more attractive to the marketing, among others. The key departments that are receiving support from PPSU are the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, the Department of Health, the Department of Transport, and the Department of Economic Development, Environmental Affairs, and Tourism. Honorable Speaker, given the profile of our province, this budget places the poor and vulnerable at the core of service delivery. As such, the social protection, community, and human development cluster is allocated an amount of 79.4 billion rand in 2025-26 and 254.7 billion rand over the MTF. This used to be what we call, I think, the social cluster. The economic sector investment, employment, and infrastructure development cluster has been allocated an amount of 16.4 billion rand in 2025-26 and 49.7 billion rand over the MTF. And lastly, the governance, state capacity, and institutional development cluster has been allocated an amount of 3.2 billion rand in 2025-26 and just over 9.6 billion rand over the MTF. Honorable Speaker, for our economy to grow and create more employment opportunities, it is critical that we create an environment that is conducive to private investment, continue to invest in public infrastructure, and support business. This approach will not only serve to boost short-term employment, but enhance the country's productive capacity and overall competitiveness over the short to medium term. Mr. Temba Moya from East London, another member of the public who sent us the budget tip, you will be happy to know that we've considered the issues we advise us to prioritize in order to grow the economy, including infrastructure and building and investor confidence. This tip is similar to that of Mr. Ayanda Mhlanti and many others who want to see our economy growing and creating jobs. Honorable Speaker, the 6th administration laid down a strong baseline of investment pledges of up to 200 billion for the 7th administration to build on. You would remember when we came in, we had a target of 9 billion and we exceeded that up to 2 billion. Now, these pledges are in various stages of realization. To maintain this positive investment outlook and ensure declarations and commitments are implemented speedily, it's becoming ever more critical for government to also deliver on its end of the bargain. That means government being more committed and more credible in its efforts towards creating a conducive and business-ready environment. Now, through the PIC, which is the Provincial Investment Council, and other provincial investment promoting agencies, additional focus will be placed on ensuring red tape and municipal bylaws do not hinder new investments and constrain growth and expansion of existing business. We must ensure that logistics infrastructure such as roads, rail, ports, and airports are improved and maintained at high quality standards with the support of the private sector through public-private partnerships, funding, and concessions. And create open communication lines between government and business on trade and investment matters. This is part of economic reforms agenda to create a conducive environment for investors to invest or do business in the province. Honorable Speaker, infrastructure is an enabler for economic growth and job creation and is vital for investment, promotion, and attraction. It is for this reason that provincial government, with support from national government, continue to work towards improving our infrastructure such as roads, rail, ports, water, and energy. Our strategic partner in implementing our road infrastructure, Sandral, has already invested up to 20 billion rand to improve the quality of our roads. And this investment is expected to rise up to 56 billion rand by the year 2027. The provincial government, through the Department of Transport, is also investing an amount of 2.2 billion rand in 2025-26 and 5.6 billion rand over the 2025 MTF to facilitate access to provincial economic and social amenities. The department will, among other projects, continue with bridge maintenance, the Wedisizo Bridge program, the phased implementation of the Wild Coast Meander route, and refurbishment of provincial road network. This funding will see the completion of the R61 from St. Barnabas Hospital to Hlulega Nature Reserve, the road from N2 to Siphe 2 Hospital, MEC Chaba, the road from the N2 to Ndabankulu in Alfred Zod district, the road from N6 to Moltina in the Chris Hani district, and a road from Humansdorp to Hangi in the Sarapan districts, amongst many. So new projects will include the rehabilitation of Yugi to Langeni Forest Road, the upgrading of Quinera Road, and the upgrading of a 20-kilometer access road from N2 to R61 via Clarkbury. I know the Quinera Road was all over in the newspapers, and I hope the mayor of BCM, if she's here, would be happy. To improve water capacity and sewer infrastructure in Kucha, SEZ, and in some parts of Nelson Mandela Bay municipality, we have allocated an amount of 303.1 million rand in the year 2025-26 and 1.7 billion rand over the MTF to Kucha Development Corporation. Now, this project is inclusive of bulk water in the sewer system to service all the investors located at the SEZ and also clients of Nelson Mandela Bay Municipality. I visited the project in Kucha and saw progress in this project, and I'm happy to say I think it will be finished in good time without needing any more funding than what is allocated. Honorable Speaker, it's important to highlight that with our infrastructure budget, we allocated a significant portion for provision of social infrastructure. In this regard, the Department of Education has been allocated an amount of 1.9 billion rand in 2025-26 and an amount of 5.9 billion rand over the MTF. This investment is made available to build new school facilities and carry out maintenance, refurbishments, and upgrades of existing schools. This includes building of new schools and new hostels. So when we came in this morning, the MEC for Education was saying we have come to witness the budget of MEC Chaba. But I think it's just the other way around. It's not the budget of MEC Chaba. For health infrastructure, we're setting aside an amount of 1.6 billion rand in 2025 and 4.9 billion over the MTF. This funding will carry maintenance, upgrading, and refurbishment of existing health facilities in the province. Through this budget, we are supporting the modernization and transformation of our hospitals, including accelerated delivery of oncology infrastructure to provide care for cancer patients. The Nelson Mandela Academic Hospital is one of the health facilities that will benefit from this program. For the Department of Human Settlements, we are allocating an amount of 1.5 billion rand in 2025-26 and 4.8 billion rand over the MTF. The funds will go towards building 4,970 housing units in the province. Honorable Speaker, the province has been prone to numerous incidents of disasters, including heavy rains associated with flooding, as well as strong winds, droughts, and occasional heavy snowfalls, resulting to loss of life and damage to infrastructure, properties, and damage to the environment. Now, to help us recover from these disasters, provincial government is setting aside an amount of 295.5 million rand in 2025-26 and 788.2 million rand in the MTF, which constitutes 2% of infrastructure budget from departments. We've requested all departments that in their budgets they must set aside 2% for disasters. So that as we as Treasury are setting aside some funds for disasters, it is assisted by the department, so that if there is something urgent in the Department of Education, they don't have to wait for the whole process of declaring budget and doing that. They can do the menial things because they've set aside the 2% budget. And I'm hoping that departments will do that and will set aside that. So this is part of money we are setting aside to plan for and respond to disasters and climate change effects. And then lastly, as a contingency to deal with disasters and climate change, what we have ring-fenced as provincial treasury is 60 million rand in our reserve, to reserve for that. Honourable Speaker, the government is enhancing reforms to promote effective delivery of infrastructure. The targeted infrastructure improvements will be driven through the reconfigured cluster system, taking cognizance of the emerging priorities of the 7th administration. This is the approach we did when we were actually crafting the budget. We crafted the budget, the MTech hearings were done in a cluster system where all departments were there to ensure integration. One of the key focus areas in planning is ensuring that the existence of a robust project pipeline that is sound and bankable enough to secure alternative sources of funding. This will be aligned to the current proposed initiatives of National Treasury as they relate to alternative financing mechanisms and project preparation. The key focus in delivery is to improve provincial delivery management capacity, including dealing with inadequate contracting and project management, resulting in time and cost overruns in departments, as well as in the public entities and the implementing agents of the various departments. The value for money on projects delivered needs to be optimized, thus ensuring that service delivery to communities is optimal. This will continue to be managed and strengthened through infrastructure coordination and monitoring and support by creating a line of sight that includes provincial treasury, public works, and infrastructure, as well as the Office of the Premier. Now, this model allocates 3 technical streams: budget monitoring, led by the provincial treasury; project monitoring and implementation, led by the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure; and lastly, service delivery modeling and site visits, which is led by the Office of the Premier. Now, honourable members, given the state of our finances, we are losing millions of rands because of many inefficiencies that are found in the system, especially in infrastructure project implementation. These are mostly attributable to challenges related to the shortage of portfolio program, project and contract management skills, both as related to planning and implementation capacity, which has led to projects not being completed on time with the appropriate costs and quality. I do not have to say this in many times. Many departments start projects from 2018, and some of those projects are still not complete, and yet the budget in those projects continues to rise. There are a number of projects that show zero spending as at January 2025. Variation orders are creating huge fiscal challenges for us as they lead to budget overruns. The underperformance of contractors, which lead to cancellation of contracts, add to the challenge that we have. With the national minister, we raised the issue of budget over of variation orders, because now Treasury issued out a circular where the departments can, they don't have to come to Treasury anymore for variation orders. So by the time we wake up as Treasury, the budget of one project has actually gone 3 times, because as Treasury we used to scrutinize the variation order, ask questions, and reject it or approve it, but now we can't. And this is a bit of a challenge, and I think in the long run, it's going to be a bit of a challenge to all provincial treasurers in the country. At micro and sector levels of our economy, Honorable Speaker, we are determined to streamline and direct government support towards cost-effective regulatory reforms and growth frontiers that foster a transformative development, targeting agriculture, commodity value chains, high-growth manufacturing subsectors, tourism, and digital economy. The Department of Agriculture has been allocated an amount of 2.5 billion rand in the 2025-26 financial year and 8 billion rand over the MTF, 2025 MTF, for food security and producer support services. The focus in the main, Honorable MEC Konziwe, will be on development and transformation of provincial agricultural value chains to accommodate subsistence and emerging farmers, develop into commercial entities while promoting food security. Smallholder farmers will be supported to increase their productivity, competitiveness, and market access. The value chains targeted include grain, red meat, citrus, pineapple, etc., etc. For tourism development, as another growth frontier, we're allocating an additional funding to the tune of 45.4 million rand in 2025-26 and 78 million rand over the 2025 MTF to ECPT MEC Peters to improve the province's tourism offering. To improve the province's offering, tourism offering, biodiversity and conservation efforts. A bulk of this budget will go towards access roads, upgrade, fencing of reserve, and maintenance of tourist accommodation in order to boost tourism. The ECPTA has managed to attract additional funding from other organs of state to the amount of 50.9 million rand in 2025-26 and 154 million rand over the MTF. So we always encourage public entities to go out and mobilize funding from external funders and not rely on what the province received from the national government. By their own essence of existence, public entities are supposed to be assisting government by bringing investment and raise our economic prospects. I don't know how ECPTA does it, but I think all other entities can do the same. Honorable Speaker, we have observed a huge growth in the film industry in recent years, having invested a total of 43.1 million rand for film development in the province since 2018-19. Now, the ECDC, through its film fund, has managed to attract external investment funding to the value of 521.7 million rand and created 9,020 temporary jobs, with 696 SMMEs benefiting across various sectors, including hospitality, retail, transport, security, and clothing sectors. These films have been produced and hosted in all the various districts within the Eastern Cape. I don't think there's a district that has not hosted any film production. To continue supporting and investing in the film development, the provincial government has allocated an amount of 15 million rand in 2025-26 and 54 million rand over the 2025 MTF to ECDC and 15.6 million rand over the MTF to ECPAC towards film skills development. Honorable Speaker, micro, small, and medium enterprises support remains one of the key focus areas of this government. We've prioritized this sector as critical for job creation and entrepreneurship and broader economic development. Now, this is the sentiment that was shared by many people who sent us tips for the budget speech. Honorable Speaker, in the provincial total budget for 2025-26, 19 billion rand is set aside for goods and services where our MSMEs are set to also benefit. This allocation will rise to 57.8 billion rand over the MTF. Of that amount, 14.6 billion rand is earmarked for youth, women, and people with disabilities. In this regard, the Department of Economic Development, Environmental Affairs, and Tourism has therefore been allocated an amount of 1.8 billion rand in the 2025-26 financial year and 6.1 billion rand over the 2025 MTF to coordinate business support initiatives and other economic development initiatives working together with its entities. An additional budget of 89 million rand in 2025-26 and 296 million rand over the 2025 MTEF has been allocated to ECDC to recapitalize some of its key business support programs, which include Economic Development Fund, MSME support recapitalization, film and local government trade and investment promotion. Honorable Speaker, we take pride at the fact that the Eastern Cape is home to various large OEMs, the original equipment manufacturers. The automotive industry in the province is a key economic driver in terms of vehicle production and exports, as almost half of the national motor vehicle exports originates from the province. At this point, I also want to take this opportunity to congratulate Mr. Billy Tom, the president of Isuzu, for his recent appointment as the chairperson. I hope you can. He has been as the chairperson of the AITF, the Automotive Industry Transformation Fund. Hopefully, now Honorable Premier, we will benefit when the chairperson of the fund is from the Eastern Cape. But I know that the AITF has funded, with this transformation funded, has funded more firms and people from the Eastern Cape. We are the biggest province that has benefited from the Automotive Industry Transformation Fund. Of course, we understand that the Eastern Cape is leading when it comes to the automotive industry. That's the reason. You will recall during the medium-term budget policy statement in November last year, I committed in this house to provide funding in the main budget for capacitation of aftermarket MSMEs in the auto sector and related services, so they can grow to the levels of accessing the government fleet contract expenditure. Abantu kuthiwa ngomanyindane. Nam ndaiva le term isuka pha ku AIDC ndaiva ngoThabo bathi ngomanyindane. So our aim is to ensure that we train them, certificate them, but over and above, we are targeting the Department of Transport when it comes to when it comes to the vehicles that are being sent all over, except to those small. So I'm excited that now, as a follow-up to what we started to do, the Eastern Cape, AIDC Eastern Cape, we have allocated 20.4 million rand in 2025-26 financial year to provide financial support for tools and equipment that will promote market access for MSMEs in the automotive sector. Honorable Speaker, the AIDC Eastern Cape has been chasing the hosting of industry events for the past 3 years. Premier ndakhumbula saye eKapa, ndona show moto yekanamsa wabuza pha eKapa sifuna ntoni apha eKapa kungekho ne-OEM, why are we here? And I think now AIDC, we are happy we're happy now that they have secured hosting the rights, Honorable Premier, for the Nakam show in 2025. And this show will be staged in Gqeberha in August, later this year, Mayor Lobisha. We have allocated them 7 million rand to host the show, which we believe will have significant impact on local component suppliers. The show will provide an opportunity for automotive suppliers in the province to network with international component suppliers to expand their business interests. Also, this show provides an opportunity or an opportune moment for a collaboration effort between AIDC Eastern Cape and ECPTA to showcase Eastern Cape tourism products to our investors, because these shows these are huge shows. So AIDC and ECPTA should work together to ensure that it's not only about the show, but we get maximum on the side of tourism when it comes to this. And I'm certain that the Nelson Mandela municipality will ensure that our visitors will be safe in the city during this time, because it's one of the biggest shows that the province will ever host. Honorable Speaker, we are aware of the employment and skills challenges that our youth face every day, while several economic development programs and business support programs are open to youth beneficiation. This government has initiated other programs that are tailor-made to respond to the challenge of youth unemployment in the province and provide new opportunities and multiple pathways to improve their skills and be productive in the labor market. Through our public employment programs, we're targeting to create 492,276 expanded public works opportunities and 36,000 community works program. The Presidential Youth Employment Initiative is targeting to employ 6,400 young people with the Department of Education as educator assistants with a budget of 165.6 million rand in 2025-26 financial year, which means you should make a dent with that. Through the agriculture commercialization projects that I mentioned earlier, we are targeting to creating 22,730 job opportunities specifically for the youth MEC Council. For infrastructure and targeted high growth sectors such as manufacturing and services, 13,004 jobs will be created over the MTF. Skills development for economic sector growth frontier will be delivered through bursaries, internships, learnerships, and artisan programs for the youth. Honorable Speaker, we are investing resources towards enhancing and sharpening procurement systems to achieve government's broader socio-economic objectives and effective civil service delivery. The automation of procurement is now a legislated requirement as provided for in the new Public Procurement Act. Importantly, Madam Speaker, the Act gives impetus to the local economic development procurement framework implemented by the Eastern Cape provincial government since 2016. The National Treasury, in collaboration with provincial treasurers and other stakeholders, is currently in the process of developing the regulations to the Act. The regulations provide a framework for the practical implementation of the Act. Many budget tips we received for public asked us to consider more funding to the Department of Education for employment of more teachers. I must highlight, I think the Honorable MEC mobilized the Eastern Cape, whole community in the Eastern Cape for this, because it's more tips were coming in that way. I must highlight, Honorable Speaker, that the province is funding that department to the tune of 49.2% of our total budget this year, which means it's the biggest chunk of our budget. 49.2 goes to the Department of Education. This is 1.2 percentage point more than what the funding norms and equitable share formula dictates. As such, we have allocated the education sector 44.6 billion rand in 2025-26 and 138.8 billion rand over the 2025 MTF to continue with the improvement of education outcomes. To ensure stability, to show stability in learning and teaching, education in consultation with Provincial Treasury has ensured multi-year declaration of post-provision norm, taking into consideration affordability levels. In this regard, an amount of 31.7 billion rand in 2025-26 and 98.7 billion rand over the MTF has been set aside for the post-provision norm. This investment will see a total of 52,817 declared educator headcount maintained. It's important to note that the provincial government has fully funded the norms and standards on par to the national learner rate across all quintile levels. In this regard, an amount of 2.6 billion rand in 25-26 and an amount of 8.3 billion rand over the MTF has been set aside as a funding towards quintiles 1 to 5. This funding will ensure that adequate resources are provided in schools, including teaching and learning materials, amongst other things. With regard to the National Schools Nutrition Program, which is implemented through a decentralized model and seek to provide nutritious meals to enhance learning capacity to all learners in public ordinary schools and targeted special schools, we've set aside an amount of 1.8 billion rand in 2025-26 and 5.6 billion rand over the MTF. For scholar transport, an amount of 794 million rand has been set aside in 2025-26 and 2.5 billion rand over the MTF. This, I'm saying it softer MSc, not. I know the struggles you have with scholar transport, and everyone so far, the complaints have minimized. I don't know how you have done that, and we hope that going forward we will have less complaints when it comes to scholar transport. This fund is made available through the Department of Transport to ferry qualifying learners. I think we've got to say that. Qualifying learners who travel over 5 kilometers to their nearest quintile 1 to 3 schools. Whilst on this issue, Madam Speaker, it's important to highlight that the Department of Transport has been requested to promote efficiencies in running this program, which includes implementation of both an electronic system and a new rate card. The education sector has been tasked with delivering on inclusive early childhood development and learner attainment as the 2 cluster priorities of the 2025 medium term. Now, the ECD sector will be funded and supported by the Provincial Department of Education through an allocation of 1.2 billion rand in 2025-26 and 3.9 billion rand over the MTF. We are also allocating 267.3 million rand in 2025-26 and 838.6 million rand over the MTF for implementation of learner attainment improvement strategy. This is the investment that we are putting specifically for curriculum, teacher support, and learner support programs to improve matric results. It targets various underperforming districts in the province. Now, Honorable Speaker, we are allocating to the Department of Health, which is the second department, highest department to benefit, an amount of 31.6 billion rand in the 2025-26 financial year and 97 billion rand over the 2025 MTF to support the equitable provision of public health services in the province MEC CAP. To continue with the provision of essential medical supplies and medicines at clinics, we have set aside an amount of 2.4 billion rand in 2025-26 and 10.2 billion rand over the MTF. To address critical staff shortages within the sector, the province will, we have set aside a cost of 1 billion rand in the 2025-26 and 3.2 billion rand over the MTF to employ doctors. I think your target of doctors and nurses is 1,510. So we've set aside that. The province will strengthen the rollout of the community outreach programs through ward-based primary health care to provide effective response to HIV, AIDS, TB, and cervical cancer patients for girls between the ages of 9 and 14 years, with a budget amounting to 3.1 billion rand in 2025-26 and 9.7 billion rand over the MTF. For the rollout of the National Health Insurance Program, we've set aside an amount of 649 million rand in 2025-26 and 199.4 million rand over the MTF. The development and implementation of the NHI is the pathway that the country has chosen to attain universal health coverage. The implementation phase of the NHI has been extended to 2026. Madam Speaker, the province continues to resource programs that are aimed at achieving social cohesion and gender-based violence, the high rate of crime and other social ills. Honorable Speaker, we are allocating 3.1 billion rand in 2025-26 and 9.6 billion rand over the MTF to the Department of Social Development to fight gender-based violence, develop and implement social crime prevention programs. We are also allocating 155.3 million rand in 2025-26 and 467 million rand over the MTF to the Department of Community Safety to promote safety programs and overseeing the effectiveness and efficiency of police services. This funding will go towards enhancing community participation and structures against crime and to promote good relations between the police and the community. Honorable Speaker, sports, recreation, arts and culture activities play a huge role in uplifting the social aspect in communities as much as it does on the economic aspect. To support this cause, we are allocating 1 billion rand in 2025-26. In 2025-26 and 3.3 billion rand over the MTF to the Department of Sports, Recreation, Arts and Culture. This allocation will also be used to improve the quality of life of all the people of the Eastern Cape through the development. Thank you very much. I think
That's the austerity measures that you see.
these austerity measures only apply when the budget is being tabled.
You should have brought your bottle of water with you, MEC Mvoko.
Deputy Chief Whip and Honorable Chief Whip, I'm told to bring my own bottle of water, and I will not forget. And I will make sure that you can't buy a bottle of water in this relationship. This allocation will also be used to improve the quality of life of all the people of the Eastern Cape through the development, transformation, and promotion of sustainable sport and recreation programs, including school sports that will lead to increased participation and global competitiveness of sports persons. It will also be used to develop, transform, and promote arts and culture, museums, heritage and language services to contribute towards government priorities. Honorable Speaker, through its budget, provincial government will strive to fight challenges of food security and malnutrition in the province and to support household food production in the Eastern Cape government. The province is implementing a food security program informed by the recommendations of the National Food and Nutrition Security Survey of 2024, as well as the research and advocacy work done by the South African Human Rights Commission in the province of on the state of the child and malnutrition in the Eastern Cape. And as part of the food security program, the Provincial Department of Agriculture plans to localize a large share of the formal and informal agricultural food value chains to increase access to nutritious food for households and rural communities. For the food security program, 269.2 million rand has been budgeted for 2025-26 and 843.7 million rand over the MTF. Honourable Speaker, in addressing challenges that relate to the demand side of food security, which are mostly related to high food prices and the lack of adequate and accessible food markets, the province will be upscaling the rollout of various social assistance and food relief programs targeting the most vulnerable households in the province. A total provincial budget of 75 million rand for food relief support initiative has been set aside over the 2025 MTF. Honourable Speaker, in light of pursuing provincial development goal of social cohesion, the provincial government is committed to continue ensuring that all young girls maintain a high level of hygiene and are encouraged to attend school regularly through the implementation of the sanitary dignity program. Through the coordinated efforts of relevant departments such as the Department of Social Development, Health Department, Education, as well as the Office of the Premier. The program targets to reach over 99,000 young girls by 2020. This is the provision of sanitary towels. We have set aside a budget of 42 million rand over the 2025 MTF for this. It's set aside to ensure that beneficiaries continue to benefit from this very important program, which seeks to maintain the dignity of young people as they navigate life and attain relevant skills for a brighter future, because this is not their choice. Honourable Speaker, provincial government is engaged in several programs that are aimed at enhancing the capacity of the state to deliver services. This includes setting up digital and ICT infrastructure in government sites and providing office space that is conducive to work environment. The provincial government has since been rolling out provincial broadband infrastructure targeting 2,700 government sites. To date, 1,975 sites have been connected, which includes 1,357 education facilities, and 363 health institutions, 152 government offices, and 363 libraries. To drive this program to completion, we're setting aside an amount of 452 million rand in 2025-26 financial year and 1.2 billion rand over the MTF through the Office of the Premier. At least, Premier, you've been mentioned once in this budget for reviews. That is our highest office, and it's the only office that never complains about budget. This allocation is being invested towards digitalization of government systems. No, the Premier never complains about budget. I'm not sure about that. This allocation is invested towards digitalization of government systems with the intention to enhance and improve service delivery. Over and above this, the Department of Education has plans to implement a broadband project wherein all schools have local area network infrastructure, ICT support, and cybersecurity at a cost of 160 million rand, 120 million rand, and 200 million rand, respectively, funded over the next 3 years. The Department of Health will implement the upgrading of its healthcare facilities through the implementation of HMS2 Phase 1 and 2, as well as EOL ICT infrastructure replacement with a total budget allocation of 119 million rand over the MTF. For conducive office space, the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure is constructing new offices, office cluster at Amaxabisibeni, with a budget of 60.2 million rand over the 2025 MTF. We're also building new offices in Kanduli, and we have set aside a budget of 54 million rand over the MTF. Public Works and Infrastructure is now reaching to phase 3 of the construction of the Makanda Artisan Development Center in the Salabartman district. Now, the Makanda Artisan Development Center is a pivotal initiative establishing to address the growing demand for skilled professionals in the built environment sector. Now, the center aims to provide comprehensive training and development programs that align with industry needs and contribute to regional socio-economic growth. Now, an amount of 22.5 million rand has been set aside for this project over the 2025 MTF. These initiatives will assist in professionalizing the public service and strengthen government system in driving service delivery. We are increasing our focus on the serious issues of officials extorting cash from accommodation establishments by tightening the policies and the process of travel agents, as well as investigating every case that is reported. Such conduct has no place in government as we continue to professionalize for a capable state. This is one of the worst kind of extortion and corruption that is happening. How I wish we could gravitate towards what the provincial legislature did, which is not a very conducive way of doing things. Because these people, whenever officials go out, I was looking at a table given to me by the HOD of how an employee of government in the past 5 years claimed 2.9 million rand on traveling costs. Yes. There are departments where officials leave Sunday and come back Friday every week. MEC for Kokta, if you're asking me doing what, I don't want to say that that official comes from your department of the 2.9 million rand. Now what they do, they go to the establishments. When they arrive, instead of receiving a plate of food for dinner, they expect a plate of money. If the establishment does not provide them that plate of money, the following day they will wake up and write a long list of all faults within the establishment. The food is cold, the place is dirty, and everything about it to the travel agent. And the travel agent will then withdraw those guests from that establishment into another establishment. Now, we are just falling short of saying this is a syndicate. It operates across from the person who travels to the establishment, the guest, the person at a supply chain. And we're just falling short of going further and saying at some point in time we will be suspecting that the travel agents are involved. But at this moment we don't have. But this is bad. It's killing. It is killing the industry. Let me not make, and it cuts across. Don't think it's the Eastern Cape province. There are national government departments that do this all the time. When I met with the women in tourism, they named them national departments that do this all the time, demanding money. But what's the sad part about this? When these people are caught within as officials, HODs and MECs, they get very light when it comes to the disciplinary hearings, the sanctions. One of them I know got a month's salary docked. Yes. Yeah, they get very light sanctions. So it's a struggle against Treasury as we try to identify this at the level of the department, because such people should be charged departmentally, but also charged criminally, because that's criminal. Let me leave that. Honorable Speaker, I will use this budget to support oversight institutions that promote governance, transparency and accountability in the province. We are allocating 750.5 million rand in the 2025-26 and 2.1 billion rand over the MTF to the provincial legislature to exercise their oversight function over the Provincial Executive Council and other provincial executive organs of state. This includes, this is the only arm of the state that got money. You heard when I started, I said there was no new man to all departments, except the legislature. This includes additional allocation of 16 million rand for upgrading of ICT infrastructure to enhance utilization of virtual platforms in the House, and 10 million rand as part of transfers to political parties in 25-26. In support the legislature to carry out their work in terms of lawmaking oversight of the province, as well as taking the legislature to the people, we have allocated them 4.8 million rand in 2025-26 and 15.1 million rand over the MTF. We've committed to the provincial treasurer to work with provincial legislature towards validating their organogram structure costing. Honorable Speaker, we're allocating an amount of 1.1 billion rand in 2025-26 and 3.5 billion rand over the MTF to the Department of COCTA to provide municipal support, traditional leadership support, and disaster management, amongst other things. I know, Kechola, where provincial treasury is allocated an amount of 519.1 million rand in 25-26 and 1.5 billion rand over the 2025 MTF to continue to support provincial departments and municipalities in order to ensure sound financial and resource management. As for medical legal frauds, our collaboration efforts with the Legal Practice Council, the National Prosecuting Authority, and the SIU are starting to bear fruit. Complaints have been laid with the Legal Practice Council against 25 different law firms, covering 73 medical negligence claims and payments totaling 1.2 billion rand. Looking at the general report by the Auditor General, Honorable Speaker, we improved our position in the number of entities with unqualified audit for the MFMA institutions for 2023-24. There is an overall improvement in the number of clean audits as the green bar is becoming bigger in each year. We started off with 2 clean audits in 2019-2020 financial year to 6 audits in 2023 financial year. We wish to congratulate Mvoko, Alfred Zo, and Amahlati for improving to clean audit. Honorable Speaker, our aim today was to bring the message of hope to our people, a message that says we are putting strategies in place to support economic growth and job creation, whilst providing support to the poor and vulnerable and protecting frontline services. We also brought a message of appeal to all public representatives and officials to act with compassion and integrity when handling public resources. If we abide by the principles of this budget, the 7th administration will transition to the 8th administration in 5 years with ease. 5 years may seem short, but if we remain committed to our course and place efficiency and effectiveness at the top of our values, service delivery will improve, jobs will be created, business will flourish, and we shall regain confidence and trust of the citizens. I wish to take this opportunity to thank the Premier, Oscar Mabuyane, for his continued guidance and support. The members of EXCO for their support and legislature, led by you, Honorable Speaker, for the oversight. I also wish to thank the Head of Department for Treasury, the Executive Management, and the entire Treasury team for standing firm and providing necessary support during these trying times. I wish to thank all our stakeholders and all the people of the Eastern Cape for support and trusting us with this responsibility of managing the province's finances. Honorable Speaker, it's with great honor and privilege that I table before this esteemed House the 2025 estimates of the provincial revenue and expenditure, the 2025 estimates of the provincial entities' revenue and expenditure, the 2025 appropriation bill, and the 2025 Gazette. Honorable Speaker, there is a summary of provincial budget allocations for the 2025-26 below in the speech. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you so much, honorable members. Can everybody please be seated? We are not done yet. Yes, we are not done yet. We are not done yet. Thank you so much, honorable MEC, for the pronouncements and for the tabling. I think there's some clarity around certain of the issues. I see some smiles, I see some frowns. I'm not sure, but Honorable MEC Luciti was smiling, then she was frowning. So I was looking that side, on that side. But thank you so much, Honorable MEC. The bill stands referred to the Standing Committee on Budget and Money Bills in terms of Rule 160, subsection 1. Before I proceed with the second order, let me also acknowledge the presence of the Deputy Minister of Kokta, Prince Burns Ngamashe Jawe. In our presence, our executive mayors and speakers that is with us today, and then also the Public Service Commissioner, Mr. Mapulisa, that is also with us. Also from the AG's office, we have the Deputy Business Leader, Tracy De Wet, that is in our presence too. The DG and DDGs that is with us, as well as he becomes now back my friend, the HOD for Provincial Treasury. He's back in my good books in that respect. So my apologies, we did not get the list before the time, so in that respect. Honorable members, we just have a short second order that we have to complete in terms of our processes. I will ask the Secretary to read the second order of the day.
Introduction of Second Adjustments Appropriation Bill 2025 Eastern Cape.
Can we call upon the MEC to table the introduction of the adjustments, second adjustments appropriation bill? That was your request.
I know it was my request, Honorable Speaker. I know it was my request, Honorable Speaker, but can I apologize? I will not be tabling an adjustment.
Well, thank you so much. It was in the guide, but I think Chief Whip, you will then have to look. We will not sit a house sitting. We will do that during a virtual sitting just to deal with that matter. We can't bring in people for a 2-minute. In that regard, that's not being very efficient with the time and the resources of the legislature. May I then, before we conclude, may I then ask the Secretary to just make a few announcements for us? Thank you so much.
These are announcements for lunch, honorable members and guests. There's a request that honorable members and guests, the lunch has been prepared for all members and all guests. Protocol staff will direct guests that are in the gallery up there to the eating points. All the guests will be accommodated in the members' dining hall. The learners from Masipatisane School and the educators will be directed to the Magdalene Khesha Committee Room, which is on this side of the block. All staff from Treasury and all other government officials will be accommodated at the tent, which is just in front, and media and project teams will be served lunch in the boardrooms that have been allocated for this purpose, which are also the site. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you so much. The service officers, protocol people will advise you where to go. The honorable members and to our guests that have joined us today, this concludes the business of the day. Thank you so much for having taken the time to join us. Please do not get out and run out of this legislature. You will be seated. The House will adjourn until the 8th of April 2025 for the tabling of the budget votes. Honorable members, please take note that on the Thursday, the 27th of March 2025 at 9 in this legislature, we will have a parliament for the creative arts, the creative sector. All members are invited to come and to participate in the proceedings. It is the first time in 30 years that the legislature will host a parliament for the creative sector. The House is adjourned.
Counting. Okay.
Counting. Welcome back to our special broadcast of the budget speech of 2025 and 2026. We are still inside legislature in Bisho. And of course, I am Jessica. But when we have just heard the MEC of Finance tabling the budget speech and allocating an amount of 97.6 billion rand to the Eastern Cape, and still I am joined by my colleague Yamgela Mchio. Well, Yamgela, it seems that the province is in a similar situation as last year, where the national government is unable, to cover the expenses of the Eastern Cape. What do you think?
Of course, Jessica, we've heard the MEC of Finance, Mlungisi, Mvoko, saying that as the province, they have been allocated an amount of 100 billion rands, but now that leaves them with a deficit of 2.3 billion rand, meaning they will have to again go back and dig deep into their reserves. But on a positive note, though, what we've heard is that there is a decline in the unemployment rate from 41.9% in the fourth quarter of 2023 to 36.6%. That is the positive that I'm sure that we're coming out with here in the budget speech. I do have a list of the budget allocation, Jessica, and as usual, the Department of Health and the Department of Education got a lion's share of the budget, with the Education Department being allocated an amount of 44.6 billion rand, Health Department getting 31.6 billion, and the Community Safety Department have been allocated an amount of 155.3 million rand. And then the agriculture was allocated an amount of 2.5 billion rand. Economic development, environmental affairs and tourism also have been allocated an amount of 1.8 billion rands. Transport has been allocated an amount of 5.9 billion. The quarter also have been allocated with an amount of 1.1 billion rands, with the sports, recreation and arts and culture working away just with 1 billion rand. I'm sure a lot of creatives in the Eastern Cape will be content with that amount, saying that there's a lot that needs to be improved.
Well, Yamgela, whilst we are right now still waiting for the MEC of Education, we do know that they also got a large pie of the budget. They got 44.6 billion rand, and I am right now going to be joined by the MEC of Education, Fundile Gade, to hear more on what he had on the budget speech. MEC, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you to the viewers.
MEC, the budget has a large share in your department. What do you think of this?
Yes, of course. In terms of the norms for the budget structure for the country, it has to. But equally, because education is an immediate equalizer of human rights, so my view is that there is nothing wrong about that. But what is key for us is to use the money optimally, use the money in a manner that does not undermine the taxpayers, but equally does everything in our own best in ensuring that at least the quality of education in the province is improving.
Well, MEC, I was just about to ask that. How are you going to allocate this money, and how are you also going to utilize it? I can imagine, of course, it's going to be schools, renovations, as well as the payment on teachers.
One amongst the critical areas for the 7th administration is to ensure that we stabilize the foundations for learning. Hence, the MEC talks about the ECD integration and a huge amount of budget that has been allocated for the ECD, so that you respond on the international crisis that we had of learners that could not read and write with comprehension, because you are not going to resolve the issue of cognitive development of learners at the highest level of the schooling system. You need to deal with it at the level of the bottom of the schooling system, and hence the integration, professionalization, building of the infrastructure of the ECD becomes critical for us, but also improve the issue of the language cognizance and language efficiency of the kids at that particular level. The second one is about retaining the momentum about the learner attainment strategy, so that kids can be able to access the schooling system at an earlier stage, but also provide a watershed monitoring system that avoids cracks in the system that would result to kids at times falling within the cracks and ultimately being dropouts. That will feed to young people that are not in education, not in the economy, not in the training. So that must be addressed via the learner attainment strategy that we have.
MEC, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
That was MEC of Education Fundile Gade giving us the reaction on how he feels on the budget speech that was allocated, which is 44.6 billion rand. I'm now joined, of course, by my colleague Yamgela Mchio. Well, Yamgela, I've just spoke to the MEC of Education, and indeed he does agree that they are going to allocate this budget and utilize it to, of course, renovate schools, and also amongst the other issues is the securities in schools and also sanitation in schools. As we know, the schools are struggling so hard with sanitations.
It is great to hear that pledge from the MEC. I mean, the Department of Education has always been the one to receive the backlash from the public about the lack of resources, about the lack of teachers, as well as the lack of security guards, as you mentioned, in schools, because there are a lot of incidences that are taking place in schools that need security personnel to be there to protect these kids, to protect even teachers, in fact, because not only are the kids at risk, but the teachers as well. We've seen what happened in Galejo, so they really do need security personnel at schools.
Well, Yamgela, another department that got a big pie in the budget is health department. They got 31.6 billion rand, and I am standing here thinking that obviously the MEC for department is going to utilize this most importantly for doctors and nurses and hiring medicines. What can you take on that?
The Department of Health, as you said, has got another lion's share of the budget from the MEC Mlungisi Mvoko, getting an amount of 31.6 billion rands. If you look at how important that department is, how it has been receiving backlash, how it has been trying to sort out a number of issues within that department, from the medical claims to the lack of resources and proper clinics, to not having enough staff and teachers. In fact, the doctors and nurses as well. So that is very important to hear also what Ndandokazi Tapa will say about the department and how much money, how are they going to allocate that money to make sure that every issue that the Department of Health is facing here in the Eastern Cape province. I do understand that we are going to continue hearing reactions just from the stakeholders that have attended this budget speech.
Yeah, well, Yamgela, right now I would like to be joined by the head of the finance department, Daluhlanga Majege. But looking at things right now, he's not too close to me. But what I can tell you right now is everybody is just coming out of the chambers and, of course, excited to go out because some other departments have found the budget that they wanted, and they're saying they'll be ready to use it and are able to be allocating it. So, Yamkela, if we can perhaps just continue talking more on health, what do you think of clinics being built, especially in rural areas?
In that question, let us welcome MEC Tapa from the Health Department, who is going to talk to us about, in fact, explain what you've just asked, so that we know exactly where the department stands. MEC, thank you so much for joining us. What do you think about the budget?
Budget will never be enough, but with the little that we got, we are excited, especially the issue of us employing doctors and nurses, because the staff shortage has been a thorny issue for us as a department, as well as the money allocated for infrastructure. We are also excited about that, because that's one area where we think we must deal with more, because our facilities need upgrade, others they need renovations, even our clinics as well. So we are really happy that we'll be able to do that. And also on the issue of medicine, there's money allocated so that we make sure that there's no shortage of medicine in the province. So I think that's very exciting for us as a department.
MEC, we've seen that you've made progress in the medical claims. Talk to us about that.
Very exciting as well. I think the assistance with the Premier's office is really assisting us in terms of the integrated approach in dealing with that. We are going to put more energy on that and make sure that we continue to reduce the numbers.
Thank you so much, MEC.
Thank you so much.
That is MEC for the Health Department, Ntandokazi Chapa, talking to us about the allocation that they have received as the department, saying that when it comes to the medical claims, she's happy with the amount of work that has been done, especially with the help of the Premier's office. So now let us go to my colleague Jessica to continue with the reactions.
Well, thank you so much, Yamkela Mchio. I'm right now going to be joined by the head of the Finance Department, Daluhlanga Majeke. HOD, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Sisi, and greetings to everyone.
What did you think of the budget?
The budget is critical balancing act, into it. So, but we had to try to make means on the little bit of resources into it. So I think it's more or less a budget which provides promise in terms of the province in order to deliver, because we more or less balance it up, all the kind of clusters, especially looking in terms of economic growth part. That's why our theme is more about inclusive growth, but also looking at the developmental agenda of the province, looking at how we can elevate poverty and at the same time create jobs within. But you need to create a sustainable approach. So within that, there is element of that as part of the overall budget framework.
Well, HOD, there has been low economic growth. Do you think this year it will improve, and what is the plan to boost the economy?
The economy, if you've seen the sort of presented, that starts a report, Statistics South Africa report speak an element of growth in the province, marginally as it is but if you look into even other provinces, it does reflect a positive side in the province. So, and when we look through into the budget, when we were crafting it, we were focusing exactly on that's why you see we're talking about agricultural value chain, because you deal with food security element. We're talking about investment in terms of, because investment is fundamentally important for you to invest, to grow the economy. It's important to invest more in terms of those particular resources. So, and we think then that I think those are the kind of, we'll look at tourism. We talk about tourism into it as part of, we look at MSMEs, support the overall into it, and we put some resources, including Economic Development Fund, in order to get partnership and partnered funding in activate the private sector to also partner with government into it, because it's not only a government initiative, it's government enabling the private sector to come in. So, and I think that with that, the private sector will take that bait which we've actually put through as part of the process.
HOD, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Cecilia.
that was the HOD coming from the Finance Department, telling us that, well, he is thinking of all the positive outcomes that can come out of this budget. Well, right now, that is all that we have for you here in Bisho in the budget of the 2025-2026. And I just want to say thank you so much to my colleague, Yamgela Mchio, for joining me today. Well, the budget will be debated next week and be passed, and before it is passed, from myself, Jessica Bobo, and the rest of the crew, it is a good night.